It is time for another amazing episode of Sports Talk with Dad. A lot to talk about today. NFL is going crazy. Baseball is going crazy with the trade deadline. But before we get into any of that, as always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who was there for the longest NFL rivalries beginning, my dad, Tim.
I was not there for the first Packers-Bear game.
It's not the longest running rivalry.
Well, it is the longest rivalry. It's not the longest continuous rivalry.
Longest running rivalry.
Longest continuous rivalry is Green Bay and Detroit.
It is. Because of
that stupid strike where they wouldn't schedule the Bears-Packers the last game of the year, which I still don't understand.
Yep. Because what, he got cut off halfway through the season? So the Packers and Lions played?
That would have been like if they're in college football, if they wouldn't have let Ohio State, Michigan be the last game of the year, or Army, Navy.
Yeah.
It just...
Well, 2020 did stop the longest college continuous rivalry of all time.
Minnesota.
It was Wisconsin, Minnesota. I think it's now Alabama, Auburn. I think that is the longest continuous.
More than like a Harvard, Yale?
It might be Harvard, Yale. I don't really remember.
I know.
It's continuous. I know that's the trick.
I won a lot of bar drinks back in the day because Wisconsin, Minnesota, nobody was thought of as the longest continually rivalry in college football.
No, I wouldn't have. I'm sure Harvard Yale was the answer because that was the first college football game.
Right.
But it's not anymore. I don't know who is anymore. If you know, let us know down below in the comments below. But on to more important things, which is the Cubs have a chance at winning the division. I have said on this show forever, since the beginning of the season, the Cubs were going to lose 100 games this year. And they are 5 games out of first place. They lost to the Reds last night. They were 4 games. They lost to the Reds. They're now 5 games. They have 3 more games against the Reds. If they win those 3 games, because the Brewers just lost to the Nationals,
they did.
They could be, by the end of this, within 2, maybe 1 game, maybe within 2 games of the Cincinnati Reds for first place.
I said this earlier this year. The Milwaukee Brewers were the real life major league because their ownership didn't like the team.
They don't.
They didn't want them to win.
Nope.
And yet they were winning.
Look at the Cubbies, though, with a better manager. I mean, you have to have a manager that actually cares about your team and isn't waiting for his contract to run up to go to the Mets.
You mean like Craig Counsell?
Like Craig Counsell. But I did one thing in 2016 with the playoff run.
Okay.
And it worked. And so I need to do it today.
No, really?
We have Joe Boo.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
So because we have Joe Boo, this is the same Cub hat he wore for the 2016 World Series run, and I will light him a cigar.
Don't start the hat on fire.
Just for Joe Boo there. Hopefully the smoke detector doesn't go off with that one.
No.
But he has a cigar lit. I don't have rum for him. I don't have any rum in the house.
I already poured something in there.
All right. We already poured something in there, so we're good there.
I mean,
The cigar is lit. Go, Cubs, go. We have a chance at this. We'll see, because if we get swept by the Reds this week, we're recording Tuesday, so I don't have Tuesday's results yet. But if we get swept,
Here was a trade that was just announced a couple hours ago.
Cubs made a trade for a
Josh
reliever.
Robertson.
Yep.
From the Rays for Adrian Sampson and Manuel Rodriguez.
They also traded with the Nationals to get their third baseman back. They traded in 2017. He's now back with the team.
I would still like to see Josh Hader come to the Cubs.
There's rumors. I was going to bring that up. There are rumors, and again, we record on Tuesday. The trade deadline has not officially ended yet, so I don't know when this post Wednesday what will happen. But Josh Hader could become a Cub.
I would love it.
Oh, he'd be my all-time favorite thing.
I would love it because that would kill the Brewers.
And the cigar has been lit. So we got to run. He's got the Cub hat on. The cigar has been lit.
I know it's kind of sacrilegious to have a Cubs hat on the Indians mascot.
I did it in the World Series.
I know you did, and it worked. We had it up. Someday we'll have to post a video again.
I lit the cigar and poured him rum during the rain delay.
Poured run?
Poured run. Yeah, poured some rum for him during the rain delay, and it worked.
By the way, speaking of that, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
You know how we always talk about Hall of Fame players, Hall of Fame managers. Joe Madden, Hall of Fame or not?
No.
I agree with you, although he was really, really good with the Rays.
He was not. I love Joe Madden.
I do too.
But he did everything he could to cost the Cubs that World Series.
People forget that there was one reason the Cubs won that World Series. Two reasons. One was the rain delay, and the other was Jason Hayward.
God spoke to Jason Hayward. There was a rain delay. God saying it is the Cubs' chance.
Only chance.
Spoke to Jason Hayward in the locker room and said, "You need to rally this team."
And he did.
And he did.
And they won.
Jason Hayward's speech, which doesn't happen in baseball ever. And he rallied them, and they came back in the 10th after the rain delay and won the game.
That's what I hated about all the people in Chicago wanting to trade Hayward all these years. It's like, are you kidding? He's worth every penny of that contract they paid him.
Just for that speech.
Exactly.
Without his defense, we don't win. But people want to give Madden a lot of credit for that and talk about him being, a great manager, a Hall of Fame manager. He burned out Chapman.
He did.
And he had him going against the Giants. I believe it was the Giants. It was the Giants. We were winning 5-0, and he put Chapman in the 8th. It's like, what are you doing? And then Chapman, of course, wasn't throwing super hard, and people are going after Chapman. It's like, why is he in this game? That's not what he's here for. He had every right to be pissed.
They had nobody else. Let's face it.
Our bullpen was pretty weak.
It was weak, and they brought in Chapman. He was going to ride that horse because he knew it wasn't going to be there the next year.
Yeah, and he did, but the problem is he rode that horse so hard that when Game 7 came around, he ended up giving up 2 runs to tie the game because his arm was burned out.
They won.
And then we got the rain delay.
And Jason.
Yeah, but I'm a Cubs fan. I can't truly be happy ever. So
there is that because it was still only one win in 108 years.
And we should have had back-to-back again. There's no reason that 2017 team shouldn't have won. It was just bad management. And then we came back the next year and lost in that one-game playoff to the Rockies of all teams. And that was it. That was the end of it.
The Rockies or Milwaukee they lost?
They lost the division in a one-game playoff in Milwaukee. And then they had the one-game playoff at home, both at home, by the way.
Well, okay.
Last game of the year at home versus Milwaukee for the division. Milwaukee wins, and then we have a one-game playoff at home in the wild card game, and we lost that too.
You can be upset about that.
I am.
I know you are.
It was a dynasty.
But how
look at the team we had?
Look at the Milwaukee team that I rooted for as a kid, specifically. Definitely not the Ryan Braun years because those should be forgotten.
You're talking the early 80s.
Early 80s. The Yount, Molitor.
The team that I didn't know that they didn't win the World Series until I was like 16 years old.
They should have won.
Because of the way Milwaukee fans talk about that team.
Okay. Every time we talk about that team, what is the first thing that comes out after they start talking about it?
If Raleigh Fingers didn't get hurt.
That's it. If Raleigh Fingers doesn't get hurt, they win.
Well, he did.
You have Pete Ladd, who was a nice pitcher, but certainly not Raleigh Fingers, and certainly not up to that kind of challenge.
But they did the same thing with Raleigh Fingers that the Cubs did with Chapman. They just rode him until his arm was done.
Different era. Don't forget, Raleigh Fingers was used to pitching 3 days, 4 days a week, 3 innings.
But at the same time, they rode him so hard at the end of that season when they really could have rested him because you did have Ladd and you had a big enough lead at the end of the season where you really didn't need him pitching.
No, we ended up having to win on the last day of the year against Baltimore.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. So they really were. It was a fight with Baltimore. Still one of my.
Shows how much I know about the 82 Brewers.
It was just such a fun team.
Yeah.
I mean, you go in the dugout and there's Vukovich and Gorman Thomas smoking a cigarette.
Vukovich, watching highlights of that is hilarious. And it makes the fact that Major League was filmed in Milwaukee that much better. Because if you really study that 82 team, that was Major League.
Pretty much.
Except for the fact that the ownership wanted to win. They had several Hall of Fame players on that team.
They did. They have Don Sutton they got in the trade.
Yep.
They had Raleigh Fingers, of course.
Right.
Robin Yount, Paul Molitor.
Both Hall of Famers.
And then you had a lot of great ancillary players. You had Cecil Cooper, who was, at the time, one of the top players in the league. He batted .350 one year. So, I mean, the guy could hit. You had Jim Gantner, who was just that spark plug that plugged in the lineup. And in the outfield, you had a guy like Ben Ogilvy, who could hit a home run anytime you needed it. And in right field, it kind of rotated between a couple guys. I remember Charlie Moore because I remember in the playoffs, he threw out Reggie Jackson, right field to third on the fly. Reggie gets up, salutes him, literally, for such a great throw. So, and Ted Simmons was catcher, another Hall of Famer.
And yet you lost the World Series.
And yet we lost the World
Series. Still 0 trophies in the trophy case. which until before 2016, I held on to dearly. Because I'm like, listen, our 2 wins may have been 100 years ago,
But at least
but we still got 2 of them.
Well, you now have 3. And
now we have 3.
And Milwaukee still has
And
none.
by the way, I want to talk about one other thing on here
God,
because it drives me nuts.
Okay, go ahead.
The oldest Major League Baseball team in the league is the Chicago Cubs.
No, it's the Cincinnati
No, it's
Reds.
not. It drives me nuts. It is the Chicago Cubs.
The year was always in Cincinnati because they were first professional team.
They were the first quote unquote professional team. They were the first team to pay their players to actually play baseball.
Okay.
Because before then it was companies, right? And these companies would pay them to have jobs outside to play baseball for their team. That's how it worked. The Cincinnati Reds were the first team to actually pay their people just to play baseball only.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they were there to do. But the Chicago Cubs have been around. They were the White Stockings to start in 1876. Then they changed their name to the Colts. They were the Colts for several years. And then they were the Orphans.
Correct.
Which should have stayed the name.
No, it should not.
Because that was a great name. If you don't know why the Cubs were called the Orphans, their manager literally stole all their equipment in like 1903, 1904, stole all their equipment and took off. I think he had a gambling problem or something. And so he sold all the equipment and then took off, leaving them. And at that time, the newspapers named the team. And so the Chicago newspapers were calling them the Chicago Orphans at that time.
Which, if they would have stayed that name, I'm sure it would have been politically incorrect by this time, and they would have had to change it.
No. Such a great name. I want to get a jersey that says Orphans on it. I really do, just to find it and just have a Chicago Orphans jersey. And then they were named the Cubs right before the World Series run, which is why the name stuck.
And why were they called the Cubs?
Same reason they were called the Colts for a long time, actually. It was a very young team.
Mm-hmm.
And
these are my little Cubby Bears.
The manager said, these are all my little Cubbies, because they were so young and the manager was much older at that time.
Right.
But that was the same reason they were called the Colts. So if they would have stayed the Colts, who knows what the Bears would have been called.
I was just going to ask, what would the Bears be if they wouldn't have been called?
If they would have stayed the Colts, I mean, they probably would have been, maybe they would have been the Broncos instead of Denver.
I would have voted for the Horses. Well,
The Horses, if they were the Orphans, that would have been a politically incorrect name for sure. Who knows?
Who knows what they would have called them then.
But they were the Cubs, they became the Bears, and then George Halas got the nickname Papa Bear after that.
And
your little baseball history for the day from Kyle.
And it rolled right
nobody cares about but me.
And it rolled right into NFL history, and the oldest rivalry in all of the NFL, again, is the Packers and the Bears.
Is the oldest rivalry.
And what is the distinction that the Green Bay Packers hold?
They're the oldest team to still be in the same city.
Okay, that's one. What's the other one?
I know what you're getting at. They're the only team in the NFL named after a sponsor.
That's correct. They were the Acme Packers.
For the Acme Packing Company. The Acme Meat Packing Company.
And their first colors were blue and gold because
Curly Lambeau went to Notre Dame.
There you go. So now you've had a lot of history and
who changed their colors?
They changed in the 50s.
Who changed their colors?
It wasn't Vince.
It was Vince.
No.
Vince changed their colors in 1957. They became green and gold.
Was it Vince?
It was Vince.
I thought they were green and gold like in the early 50s.
I don't
before he
believe
got there.
so. But maybe they did change it before Vince. I was always told it was Vince Lombardi in 57 when he first got there. He's like, we're the damn Green Bay Packers.
Well, I could see that. And
why are we blue? We're changing the colors to green.
If anybody, and he invented the logo. He had the team equipment manager came up with the logo that's on the side of their helmet.
Did you know that the G is a football shape?
Yeah, if you look at the bobblehead from the Ice Bowl that I got, it's football shape.
It was also not the first G like that. Did you know that?
No.
The first one to have that G just like that was
Georgia.
It was Georgia.
Okay.
Georgia had it first.
They didn't trademark it.
They did not trademark it.
And they're still paying Green Bay $1 a year.
Yeah, the Green Bay Packers got the trademark first. The Packers said, obviously you can have it, because otherwise it would have been a hell of a legal fight that the Packers would have lost. And so they get to sell the merchandise. They pay the Packers $1 a year to keep the trademark. And that's how it goes. Grambling also pays $1 a year.
I would
have the same G.
I would guess that no check has ever been cashed.
I doubt it's even an agreement anymore. It was an agreement because it was, I think, in 58 or 59, the Packers trademarked it. And there was a big conversation with Georgia. And
if I were Georgia, I'd have a big conversation with them too.
They had it like 3 or 4 years before the Packers switched to it.
They didn't trademark.
Pointless trivia by Sports Talk with Dad that doesn't matter. The most important thing we've done this entire show is we put the Cub hat on. Joe Boo,
the cigar.
Lit the cigar.
Gave him his rum.
He's got his rum. So we are set and ready to go. It worked in 2016, folks. If it works again this year. You know what's really annoying, though? I haven't paid attention to the Cubs all year. I thought we were going to lose 100 games. After the All-Star break, I'm like, I have to actually start paying attention and watch baseball games again this year. And now they're so close. I've watched the last 4 games, but I'm nervous. Like, okay, I'm going to start watching, and they're going to get swept by the Reds. And then that's going to be all sheer up.
And
they haven't been swept yet. They haven't been swept yet. They have some great players. Cody Bellinger's coming back to almost MVP form. Dansby Swanson has turned that team around. Ross is proving how great of a manager he is.
Proves once again that all of the best baseball minds are catchers because they have to think unlike pitchers and the rest of the team. All of them are catchers, former catchers. It's true. Madden was a catcher.
A lot of
Yogi Berra was a catcher.
Joe Madden was a catcher for 3 weeks.
He had to catch, so he had to think.
In Single A for the Quad City Angels, which is also a team you were a part of.
I was.
So you do have that. I think he was a few years.
He was before me.
Was he before you?
He was in the 70s.
He was in the 76, I think he was a catcher.
He may have been the Quad Cubs. I don't know if it was the Angels.
It was the Angels.
Was it the Angels? Okay.
Because he was in the Angels system for so long. Right. He was the manager of the Quad City. Right. And I think you two just missed each other.
We did. The manager when I was there was not Renee Latchman. That was the Brewers manager, but his brother was named Latchman, and he was the very bitter brother.
Really?
That was the manager of the Quad City Angels.
So Madden must have just gone up to AA because he retired and became the Quad City Angels manager for a long time. Again, stuff nobody that listens to this show cares about. What they do care about is Rogers taking a pay cut. But before we get into that, you let us know what you think about Pointless Trivia. Should we have more? Should I just shut my mouth? You let us know in the comments below, and while you're down there, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it.
People like the Stump the Dad last week.
Yeah, that's fair. We did get a lot of things about that. But Rogers takes a pay cut. Packers fans are furious.
Get over it.
And I don't understand why.
Because Packer fans always get upset with that kind of thing. And this goes back to the fact that Green Bay didn't sign Jordan Nelson. They didn't bring in talent to help him all those years. Rodgers is finally on a team that's going all in and bringing him everything he's asked for.
Very close to signing Dalvin Cook.
Yep. And so they are going to, he decided, look, I'm going to take a pay cut. His cap hit is like $9 million. Way less than it was in Green Bay. And by the way, he's still going to get all of his money.
Well, it's less money. That's even the crazier part. So he was due $50 million this year, $60 million for the last year of the contract. If he's on the roster by June 1st. Otherwise, it was like $20 million. This is fully guaranteed. It's 2 years, $75 million completely throughout the old one. And so he's really given up quite a bit of money. But this is a fully guaranteed contract, $75 million, $35 million this year, $35 next year.
That's not a lot of money in today's NFL.
No, it's not. That's what I'm saying. It takes him out of the top 15 highest paid quarterbacks in the league.
He wants the Super Bowl. Everybody complained in Green Bay that Rodgers wouldn't take a Brady deal. Well, you know what? If you're going to take a Brady deal,
right,
give him something around him. Bring in the talent you need to compete on a year in, year out basis. And let's face it, he hated Goody.
Right.
And Goody hated him.
There was no love lost.
There's none.
Yeah, Goody was ready to move on in 2017 when he took over, when he refused to sign Jordy Nelson back to the Packers, which
was stupid.
I still don't understand that one. You can't explain it to me.
Right.
It really was. He was ready to move on and take over the team. He wanted to, show who had the bigger cojones. That's a better word than I was thinking in my head.
It was actually what they tell guys. They always have a blank measuring contest.
That's what it was.
That's all it was.
It was a measuring contest, and Goody lost. I mean, it really, we'll see if he ends up winning with this new team. It is the most inexperienced wide receiver group in NFL history since the merger. So,
and here's the thing about it.
I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't either. Green Bay always, going back through all the Favre years, they would draft young players, but they always had a veteran in the room to help them out.
Yeah, when Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb was drafted, you had Greg Jennings, and Greg Jennings moved on after those two had established themselves. Devontae Adams was then drafted.
And yeah, Donald Driver was there.
Donald Driver was there through the whole thing. James Jones was a part of that when Greg Jennings was there. And then Devontae Adams was brought in to be that replacement, and then
there's a big and
they were gone.
They taught them the Packer way,
right?
And now these guys have nothing.
This is complete rumor, but there is rumor out there saying Devontae Adams is starting to ask for a trade to the New York Jets.
Oh, I saw that, and I could see that happening in a minute.
Those people that said he left because of Rodgers, that's completely false.
He didn't want to leave, period. He was just pissed because Green Bay, again, Goody with an ego,
right,
wouldn't have signed him the year before when he should have.
Right.
The fact that Devontae Adams isn't on the Packers breaking Don Hudson's record is a travesty.
He was at 73 when he left, so he finished with 73, by far in second place.
He would have, give him another year and a half, he would have broken the record.
Yeah, he would have gotten pretty close last year. In the next 2 years, he would have broke it. He's the one that should have broken it, and he should have his number retired. He won't now, but if he breaks Don Hudson's record, it gets retired.
Well, if he breaks down Hudson's record, I mean, he's still going to be a Packer Hall of Famer.
He'll be a Packer Hall of Famer, but his number's not going to be in the rafters anymore.
Not anymore, unless something bizarre happens, but I don't see him ever coming back to Green Bay.
You have a lot of people you could put in the rafters. You really got to be special. Only 6 retired right now. It'll soon to be 7. And it won't be Adams, which it should be.
No, it should be. I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Goody should have been fired because you don't let back-to-back Hall of Famers leave your organization and expect to keep your job. I've never seen it before.
I haven't either, but this year could change everything.
Or not.
It could.
I mean, look, I've heard all the reports about Love. He looked okay.
Really good.
He's looked okay.
And he had one really good practice.
Okay.
I haven't seen him since.
I'm sitting here looking at you with really one good practice.
It's better than any other practices he had.
He's going to be an okay quarterback. They're going to have to move on from him and I hope he shows up like he did in Philadelphia. I do think he's turned the corner attitude-wise.
Attitude-wise, 100%. He is going to be at his max skill this year. I mean, that's what's really going to tell. Rodgers got a lot better as the year went on in his first year. People say you went 6-10 with Rodgers. Almost all those wins came in the second half of the season.
He really, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, he not only turned a corner, it was like being on the Indy 500. He grew into that position to the next year. He wins the Super Bowl.
Right. And then we lose a lot of conference championships.
Yes, we did.
Another big signing happened, which is extremely interesting to see. Now, this happened right after we recorded our show last week, so it is older news, but I wanted to talk about it for sure because the next thing still hasn't happened. The Giants gave their left tackle a big contract, making him the highest paid left tackle in NFL history. Yet Saquon Barkley still hasn't been, well, he did get that extension afterwards for the 1 year, $11 million with insane amount of incentives. But what are you telling your locker room here if you're the New York Giants? If you're a New York Giants fan, which I don't know why you would be, but if you're a New York Giants fan,
that was cold.
How do you feel right now? Because Daniel Jones gets a big contract because of one game. And really the only reason he had that game was because the other team was so afraid of what Saquon Barkley could do that you had to give Daniel Jones time to make the throw. The other team said, fine, we're going to stop Saquon. Daniel Jones has to beat us.
And he did.
And he did.
He had to come back against Green Bay.
But if I'm Saquon, I signed that $11 million contract, and I'm hurt week 1.
It comes back to what we've talked about. Look at Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis, which, by the way, his price of poker just went up because his backup, Zach Moss, broke his arm today.
He did.
So, and without Jonathan Taylor, the Colts are nothing, and that's not fair to Richardson. But
no,
running backs in this league until December are not valued. If I'm an agent, I sign contracts in December because that's when running backs value is at its highest. I don't understand it. Look at Zeke Elliott. The guy's 27, 28 years old.
Yeah.
And he was cut by Dallas. Probably going to end up in New England.
That's the rumor.
Saquon Barkley, one of the top 5 backs in all of football. Yet they aren't paying him.
I mean, he's the best back in all of football right now. It's not even close. I mean, you have Jacobs, who still hasn't signed either, by the way.
No, and Jonathan Taylor is up there. I mean, he's amongst the best. Maybe he is the best. I don't know. But owners don't value running backs because it's such a passing league.
Right. For now. Like you said, it is until December.
Right. When you have to pound out the games. Football is still football. And in December, when it's cold, you don't throw as much.
You can't. You can't. The receivers are getting paid big. And yet the second most important player on that offense, the running back, especially if you have a 3-down running back who's a threat when you swing out to the outside, but also a threat for when you block, like Saquon Barkley is, they're treated like trash. Like, well, he got hurt. Okay. Joe Burrow got hurt his first year.
Everybody looks at running backs and thinks, that's fine. We're going to use them and we'll draft somebody else who's another college player that'll be able to step in.
It's always what it is. Zeke Elliott getting paid and all of a sudden slowing down. That also, I think that was the final nail in the coffin on this whole situation, because Zeke gets this big contract after his second year and then really isn't the same player. But I think the issue is, too, look how much Zeke was used in college.
Correct.
Saquon was the same way. I mean, these guys are really the team in many college instances. Zeke definitely was for Ohio State. Saquon Barkley definitely was for Penn State. And they're also 2 Big Ten guys. And that is ground and pound all day long. What have we talked about? The SEC is flashy play. In the Big Ten, you put those SEC teams, it's going to be a different story, unless it's Alabama. Because you're going to beat everybody.
You're going to get beat up in the Big Ten.
Right.
And if you're a running back, you're playing against NFL-sized players, and you're going to get hit hard.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's, people talk about the SEC a lot with, and this is kind of off topic a little bit. People talk about SEC a lot.
Squirrel.
Yes, but if you take out Georgia and Alabama and put any of those other teams in the Big Ten, I don't know how many of them survive. I really don't. You put Florida in there with the team they have now, they're going to get beat in the trenches. Their front line just isn't big enough. Missouri's bad in the SEC. They'd be bad in the Big Ten
Texas,
too.
Oklahoma, which they haven't joined.
They don't count.
They're going to.
Right.
LSU would do well.
They could.
But it's a different game when you play in the cold. It just is. You've got to have big guys up front. You've got to be able to run the ball. Look at Wisconsin all those years. It's going to be interesting now with Luke Fickell, as long as we're going down the squirrel path, because he's going to want to air it out. And you still have Wisconsin history of being a running program. So
he'll change that around.
They're still going to run the ball. I mean, they've still got great backs.
I mean, it's better than when Wisconsin ran the veer.
Well, that's not saying much. That was the worst year of my life.
I remember.
I think that guy ended up being an insurance salesman in North Dakota someplace.
Probably. Yeah, you can't run the veer anymore. And then Barry came in, and the rest is history. Luke Fickell's going to be a fun little trick for Wisconsin. And, 5 years, he'll end up back home, and Ohio State will start winning more national championships.
Bite your tongue.
It's going to happen.
Luke Fickell is going to build his own legacy in Wisconsin, not in Ohio State.
Luke Fickell, in 5 years, is going to be back at Ohio State.
No.
The Cubs are going to the NLCS this year.
I hope.
And Jordan Love is the next Hall of Fame quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. These are done.
One thing I've been in business for a long time. I will tell you this, and I've told you this
I'm never wrong on my predictions.
Hope is not a plan.
Sometimes hope is all you got.
Thank you, Shawshank. Speaking of which,
Herbert also signed.
Which is great. Well worth the money. I mean, he is that organization right now.
Highest annual salary. I don't know if this is where you wanted to go.
No, that's fine. We'll go there.
But he signed. He's now making $500,000 more than Lamar Jackson at $52.5 million annually.
Herbert or Burrow?
Herbert. Burrow has not signed yet, and that's what I wanted to ask you.
Wait a minute, I thought Burrow signed today.
Did Burrow sign his contract today? Did I miss it?
Thought I just saw that. For Burrow, despite Thursday's practice, nope. Herbert's extension was $262.5 million. So Burrow hasn't signed yet. My bad.
Okay, way to throw me off. I'm like,
Sorry.
I've been paying attention to this. I have alerts on this.
Read it wrong.
All right, he hasn't signed yet.
No.
But that becomes the question. Because right now, Patrick Mahomes is 7th highest in the league. Ahead of him is Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert. Josh Allen is behind Patrick Mahomes on his signing. And then Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones, and Matthew Stafford round out the top 10. This has got to be a massive contract. He's going to be, it could Burrow be the first $60 million a year quarterback.
Don't forget, you got the new NFL money coming in from the TV.
That's what I'm
networks.
saying. Burrow is football Jesus.
Whatever Burrow gets, Mahomes going to get more. They'll structure it somehow because Burrow is a big team guy.
He is. That's the other question is, will he do what Aaron Rodgers just did? And I don't think he will. People forget Brady got paid. Like, let's make no mistake. Brady got paid. It was signing bonuses, and I'm sure a lot of under-the-table stuff, but he got paid. His salary cap was never that big because they kept pushing out the contract.
Right. And don't you think Patrick Mahomes, he's a part of Chiefs family forever. He's going to sign a personal services contract similar to what Favre has done in Green Bay and Art Starr before him. So they're going to be getting paid lifetime money from these organizations.
But we're talking about Burrow in his first big contract, life-altering money. He's just got hurt for the second time. They say mild calf strain. That sure looked like an Achilles injury to me.
It did to me, too.
But it hasn't been announced as that. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks. I have a strong feeling that's not the case.
I don't think he starts the season.
I don't either. But so what do you do if you're the Bengals? Because this is his last year. You have to sign him before the end of training camp if he's hurt or not. You have to.
He's your future.
You have to. What's that contract looking like, though? What do you think the annual is going to be?
I think it will be in the 250, 260 range. I mean,
262 is just Justin Herbert.
I understand that.
This is going to be a $300 million contract. Come on. Don't even pretend it's not going to be. They won't do the 10-year that...
I'll tell you why it won't be. Because Brown is the cheapest owner in all of football.
Well, he had been until recently. Don't forget how much he has invested in the last few years. He was the last person with an indoor training facility, or the last team, I should say. They just built a massive multi-million-dollar indoor training facility for that team. He was cheap for a long time, but he's also a smart business person.
Decades, actually.
Right. But he's also a smart business person or he wouldn't be in the situation that he's in.
Sure.
And he's understood, this is my franchise now, and I need to open the checkbook. Because if he lets Burrow leave, that's as bad as the Angels owner letting Ohtani leave. Like, it's just not going to happen.
I don't see it happening. The money is going to be there. As I said, the new NFL contract is TV contract.
I think massive. That he is going to get if
275.
Justin Herbert just got 262 over 5 years. If we're playing apples to apples, this will be 5 years, $300 million.
That's everybody barked.
Daniel Jones just got $45 million.
I know, but
$40 million a year. I'm sorry.
Everybody barked at what Lamar Jackson was asking for.
He got it.
He got it in the end.
Shorter contract, but he got exactly what he wanted.
Look, I don't, and you're going to hate me for this. Mahomes is worth $300 million. Burrow?
You shut your mouth.
I told you. Burrow maybe 275.
Burrow's football Jesus. He walks on water. Which he needs to right now because he's not walking.
He's not walking on anything right now.
Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. Burrow is number 2, if not 1A. Period.
2.
Period.
There's Mahomes. There's everybody else.
There is. And we're going to get more into that next week, so make sure you turn in. But you let us know what you think, if I can speak correctly. You You let us know what you think in the comments below. Is Joe Burrow, apples to apples, going to get that 5-year, $300 million contract? I 100% think he is. You let us know in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it. I know I took it a different direction. What did you want to talk about?
Well, let's just face it, though. One final thing. Joe Burrow is no Jordan Love. I mean, come on.
I don't think so either. No, I agree with you on that one.
You're the one that keeps saying he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean,
he's going to be. He is going to be. Let me ask you a question.
All right, ask away.
So Burrow just got hurt, right? He has a calf injury. They say 4 to 6 weeks. Odds are he is not going to be ready for week 1, right?
Right.
He could be out if it's, again, calf sprain. For those of you that don't know the calf, right? If you flex your leg, I'm not going to pull my leg up on camera. It's not going to happen. But if you feel your calf muscle when you flex it, that top part is your calf muscle. Everything below that, except for some small muscles, is the Achilles tendon. It is the tendon that connects the calf to the bottom of your heel and your foot.
I'm sorry. I may be proved wrong, but that looked, I've seen Achilles tendons go out. It's like you're shot in the back of the leg.
I remember seeing Kobe Bryant when he popped his Achilles, and it looked exactly the same.
Exactly. And Burrow reacted just
He
that
couldn't
way.
put his heel on the ground.
No.
He literally went down. I've had an Achilles sprain before,
which is bad enough.
And I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. And I couldn't put pressure on it. So it's possible that it was a really bad sprain, but calf, a lot of people think, and I know this is true because I've talked to people about this, they think the calf goes from top of the knee or the bottom of the knee down to the foot. No, the calf is halfway. It is from the bottom of the knee to halfway down your thigh. The rest of that is your Achilles tendon. So they can say it's a calf sprain, but his ACL was mixed in that, because if it's just your calf, you don't walk that way. It's different. There's a very different. I don't know how to explain it. If you've had it, you've had it. If you've had both,
if you've seen the video of Burrow when he gets hurt, it looked every bit like his Achilles was just cut.
From playing tennis as long as I did, I have had a calf sprain and I've had an Achilles sprain, which is very different feelings. It just is. The calf you feel on the top, and then you can't walk with the Achilles, and that just looked like an Achilles injury. It really did. I'm not a doctor. I don't know.
I hope it is just a calf sprain.
I hope so too. That's what they're reporting out there. I think they're protecting things. My question to you now is what's more likely if you're the Bengals here? Do you go with Trevor Siemian? He has NFL experience.
Mm-hmm.
He's won some games for the Broncos. Definitely not Joe Burrow.
No.
But he's your backup quarterback. Can he get you through a couple of games if that's what it really turns out to be? But say it's not. Say it's more than that. You go with Trevor Siemian for half the season. Just saying it's half the season. Do you trade for Trey Lance and see what he's got to see if he can save your season? Because you can get him for cheap. He's third on the depth chart for San Francisco. You can probably get him for a 3rd or 4th round pick. Or
the door number 3.
Door number 3, do you make a phone call to the Oakland Raiders and say, is Tom Brady available?
Tom Brady is going to play one place, and that would have been in Vegas. I was wrong about that. I don't think he's playing at this point. Although he may still come out of the woodwork.
You have a stacked roster with 2 of the best wide receivers in the game. Right? It is the best wide receiver duo.
Look,
and we're not even talking about Joe Mixon back there, who is still a top 5 running back in this league, and another running back that's about to get paid again.
Look, if
a defense that can play,
there's going to be an injury at that quarterback position.
There's a Super Bowl roster.
Yeah,
it's still early enough in training camp.
If Garoppolo gets hurt,
forget Garoppolo. Garoppolo's already hurt.
I know. He's always
That's
hurt.
not an if. I love Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's a winner. I think with the way the bar set in the Hall of Fame, Jimmy Garoppolo is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He hasn't won one yet, but if he wins a Super Bowl, he's in the Hall of Fame. You have to. You don't have a choice. But you have Tom Brady sitting there right now. He's there. So you have 3 options. I am asking you as a GM. You are the GM of the Bengals. I'm going to go over these again. I see you chomping at the bit here, and I know what you're going to think. I know what you're trying to say, but I want you to really, really think about this. Because you're the GM with a Super Bowl roster.
I've got my answer.
A Super Bowl roster with Joe Burrow, but he's hurt half the season, possibly. I'm making this up. I don't know if he's out for half the season. I'm just saying, if he is out half the season, you can go with Trevor Siemian.
I think
which isn't a bad option.
That's how you start the year.
Okay, hold on. Let me finish. I want to give you all the options. I want to paint a beautiful picture. I am Bob Ross for you right now, painting pretty little trees. You have Trevor Siemian, who has won games with the Denver Broncos before. He's had a decent NFL career. Definitely worth being a backup in this league. But can he carry you half the season is the question. You have an option where you can get Trey Lance. I'm probably exaggerating on third or fourth. You can probably get him for a 5th round pick. You can get him for really cheap. This was the number 3 overall pick at one point in the NFL draft. You can bring him in, see what he's got. He's worth a 5th round pick to see if anything you still go with Trevor Siemian. Or you can call Mr. Tom Brady, who still has it in the tank, and you only need him for half a season. That's the great part about this. Because with Joe Burrow back, you can move on from Tom Brady and he can hold a clipboard.
Brady is not coming back unless he's playing in that second half of the season.
You can call Tom Brady and you can say, listen, this is Joe's team, but we need you for half a season. He can play the Earl Morrall role, and Joe Burrow can come back, win the rest of the games, and go to the Super Bowl.
Can I give you the answer? If I'm Cincinnati and Burrow's going to have to start the season on the PUP list, missing half the season, 8 games, I do make the call to San Francisco and bring in Trey Lance as my backup, because you're going to have to get a backup.
Yeah.
I ride Siemian as long as you can. See if he can win some games for you, which he can. I think he can.
With Trevor Siemian, if he's out 8 games, it's realistic that he could go 4-4. I really think that's possible.
I think he could. With that team, he could probably do a little bit better than that. You know,
the offensive line's still a question mark. Like, that's the one thing we don't know.
Well, and that's the problem. That's always been the problem with Cincinnati. Brady's not coming Brady's not going to Cincinnati. He's going to be in. If he's playing anywhere, it's in Vegas.
But he could go into Cincinnati. He looks good in stripes, man. He really could.
There's no way.
Andy Dalton looked good in stripes, and redheads aren't supposed to wear orange. So
flash with his hair.
You can bring in Tom Brady, and he's going to look good in those stripes.
It's not going to happen. Brady's not going to leave. If he plays anywhere, it's going to be in Vegas. And I can see that happening. It's going to take the permission of the league and of the owners, which they're going to give him permission.
Correct.
But that's going to happen 2 or 3 games into the season.
But say it's an option for the Bengals.
It's not an option.
But say it is.
But it's not.
Say all 3 of those options are on the table.
It's not.
You can bring in Brady for half the season.
Brady is not going to come in and play the first half of the season and let somebody else win the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen. He's way too much of a competitor for that.
But what if it could?
If a dog ate a tree, he'd poop a canoe. It's just not going to happen.
Sometimes hope is all you got.
Thank you.
You know?
Speaking of Shawshank, considering that's where that came from, so I walk in on you last night. For whatever reason, you decided bed was not an option for you last night.
I could not sleep.
You were watching Over the Top.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone.
One of the greatest sports movies of all time.
Robert Longio.
The most overacting by a child actor I've ever seen, and it was perfect.
I like Stallone movies.
Over the Top is top 10 sports movie. It is a drop the remote movie. If it's on TV, you drop it.
I've watched the movie several times. I'm not arguing with you.
Great movie.
Stallone plays
it's Stallone's greatest acting experience. Or acting, what's the way to put it?
Considering he won, really? Better than Rocky?
He didn't win the Oscar for Rocky as an actor.
No, he didn't. He's never won an Oscar for anything, but
he won an Oscar for Rocky as the writer.
As the writer.
Yeah. Best screenplay.
But he's never won it as the actor.
No, that's what I just said. But he should have won it for Over the Top. Because that movie was over the top.
It was. The only movie about arm wrestling that I'm aware of. And
I don't know of another one. Over the Top is the most underrated sports movie of all time. Yes, it is a sports movie because Kingpin, or what's that movie with Bill Murray? and Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, Kingpin.
Yeah, that's named as a sports movie. Whatever NASCAR movie Tom Cruise was in, where Robin's just racing.
Day of Thunder. Or something.
That's considered a sports movie.
Tin Cup's a sports movie.
Tin Cup's a sports movie, which means I get Over the Top, and it is the most underrated. It is a great movie. Stallone carries that film in an acting performance you wouldn't expect from Sylvester Stallone.
It was very subtle, with the exception of when he drives the semi through the gate.
It was perfect.
But
it was a father getting his son back.
I will say, just like in Rocky, when he's in that final battle against the monster, you were rooting for him.
Yeah.
You really were.
Yeah.
But I was a little surprised. I mean, I've got drop the mic movies like Major League.
Drop the mic, drop the remote.
Drop the remote. Sorry. One of those movies when you're clicking through, you see it. Yeah. I'm done.
Shawshank Redemption falls into that. Major League. Tombstone's definitely one of those movies. And Over the Top. From the beginning, okay. For those of you that don't know the premise, I'm going to spoil it.
And nobody does, because you and I are probably one of the few people that ever seen the movie.
It's a 30, 40-year-old movie, so don't yell spoiler alert on me. But if you really don't want it to be spoiled, then fast forward about 5 minutes.
No, don't do that. They're going to miss valuable content. You've got to watch
true.
every minute of Sports Talk with Dad.
Very true. Sylvester Stallone, he's a trucker. He ended up leaving his kid because he thought it was best. The kid's grandfather is very well off. The kid's mother is dying from cancer. The kid is in military school.
The father drove them couple apart.
The grandfather of the kid drove the couple apart. Sylvester Stallone, as the father, walked away because he thought it was best for his kid, but still loved the woman, the kid's mom, very, very much.
And she loved him.
And she didn't tell her dad, the grandfather in this movie, that she didn't give him full custody. She gave it to Sylvester Stallone's character, the dad. So he goes and picks him up from military school. The grandfather didn't know, freaking out, even though the mother set it up. They get back. They drive across country to get back to see the mother, who's in the hospital. She dies before they get there. Very sentimental moment, because the kid obviously blames his dad. Said, if I just would have flown back with my grandfather, I would have been here to say goodbye. They didn't make it back in time. I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about this.
Would you get through this?
Kid gets mad at him, ends up going back to his grandfather's place.
Finds all his letters.
Finds all the letters that his dad wrote to him.
By the way,
because he thought he had never heard from his dad again, and he just was gone. His dad had wrote him letters every single day, almost. And all of a sudden, he's going through his grandfather's stuff and finds all these letters.
Which, by the way, if you can't tell, I got sucked into the movie at the same time, so I sat there and watched the end of it as well.
Because it's a great movie, and it's a tearjerker, and then he goes, and his grandfather, the kid's grandfather, ends up trying to pay off Sylvester Stallone because he's entering this contest to get a truck, because his truck's breaking down and needs a new truck to run his business.
He had to pawn it off.
He had to pawn his truck to enter this arm wrestling competition.
Bet on himself, 20-1.
He did. And he ends up...
I can't believe I know all these details about this movie.
Because it's a great movie. It is an all-time great sports movie.
I want to know what other people think is their drop the remote movies.
I think this is more of a guilty pleasure movie,
it is,
if we're being honest. Most underrated sports movie, one of the most underrated movies of all time. I think it is the Rocky franchise minus Rocky 5.
That doesn't exist.
And the Creed movies. I was a big fan of the Creed movies.
I like Creed.
Did you?
Yeah, I like.
I got halfway through.
The first one was really good. Rocky Balboa might be the second best of all the franchise.
Rocky 4. Well, Rocky 2, Rocky 4. Balboa, Rocky 3.
Rocky Balboa.
Maybe the Creeds then, because even though I haven't seen them, they got to be better than Rocky 5.
Rocky 5 doesn't exist. Anyways.
Then Over the Top. Period. End of story. It is the Rocky franchise and then Over the Top.
Got Brian's song, the original, not the remake.
I'm talking Sylvester Stallone movies.
Oh, just Stallone movies?
Just Stallone movies.
Stallone movies? He was in another one.
Better than the Rambos.
Yeah, Rambos I can take or leave. But
Over the Top.
There was one where he played a soccer player. That was pretty good too.
Over the Top.
It was over the top. But it was still a good movie.
Well played.
Well
played. That was good. What is your guilty pleasure movie? You let us know in the comments below. What do you think is the most underrated sports movie? And if it is Over the Top, like I say it is, then you are a smart individual. But you let us know in the comments below.
I just want to know if anybody has seen Over the Top.
Everybody's seen. Anybody who enjoys cinema has seen Over the Top. Anybody who enjoys classic movies that are perfect in every single way has seen Over the Top.
Really?
That might be a little bit too far. Again, you let us know in the comments below, and while you're down there, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. Before we finish and wrap this up, I want to know something from you. The NFL season's coming up.
Can't wait.
And I know you and I talk crazy on the show.
You think?
But what I want to truly know is, what is an NFL take that you have, a true NFL take that you have for this year that everybody else would think is outrageous?
Buffalo Bills will not make the playoffs.
That was mine. You stole it from me.
I think that's most obvious of all the teams that were really good teams. I don't think the Bills are going to do it. I think, and I'll add this: if Zeke Elliott signs with the Patriots could win the division.
They could. It's a good division. I mean, if Tua can stay healthy, this could really be a coming out year for him. You have the Jets, obviously, in there with a lot of hype.
A lot of hype and a lot of pressure. And if they don't win, that's going to be a fan base that if Rodgers doesn't put them over the top,
they'll turn real fast.
They're going to be suicidal.
They turned on Favre pretty quick.
Favre had a decent year. He got hurt. Yeah. And you never know. Rodgers, as much as he played through pain and everything else, he did get collarbone broken. Yeah. He missed a couple years with injury.
He did. They changed rules for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And then flag Clay Matthews for...
It's very, very true.
But...
you took my top one.
Okay.
My next outrageous take. This is assuming Ezekiel Elliott signs with the Patriots, which I 100% think this is going to happen. Zeke Elliott scores more touchdowns than Tony Pollard. Mike McCarthy's going run heavy. But if he ends up on the Patriots, Zeke Elliott scores more touchdowns than Tony Pollard.
They're going to ride Zeke Elliott as long as he'll go.
And this is a prove-it year for him. It'll be a one-year deal for him to get another contract.
Oh, and it's going to be a spite against the Cowboys.
It is. I think Zeke Elliott scores more touchdowns than Tony Pollard does this year. And I like Tony Pollard a lot. I think he's a really good player and should have been the running back for them the last few years.
I'll tell you, somebody's going to beat both of them. Bijan Robinson is going to have the most touchdowns in the NFL.
He could. He could. One more outrageous take for me here. I want to know what you think about it. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens will end up in the AFC Championship game this year.
Could happen.
Lamar Jackson breaks.
I doubt it, but it could happen.
It could easily happen. That's my outrageous take. I really think that Lamar Jackson is he's going to start figuring out the passing game more and more. And he's an unbelievable athlete, and I'm excited. And he's following that same trajectory. It's more than two syllables. It gets me every time. Trajectory, as Michael Vick did. Because people forget, Michael Vick, before he went to prison for the dogfighting thing, right? He was really starting to turn into more of a pocket passer and becoming a dual threat.
And when he was in Philadelphia, he was a great pocket
passer. When he
passer.
came back, he showed what he had really been working on years before. Lamar Jackson's following that same step, and I think you're really going to see him start to become a better passer in this league. And if he figures out how to become the passer that he can be,
I'll give you two more
in the AFC Championship.
I'll give you two more outrageous takes. Brady ends up being quarterback in Vegas at some point this year. And number two, the Commanders are going to make the playoffs out of that. They're going to finish second to Philadelphia.
Get a wild card spot?
Mm-hmm. They'll finish second to Philadelphia in that division. I don't think Dallas is going to do as well as they have the last couple years.
If Dallas does not win a playoff game even, Mike McCarthy's gone.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll never get another coaching job again in the NFL.
That'll be the end of it. And McCarthy is one of those guys that I saw a weird thing where saying he coached 4 Hall of Fame quarterbacks and made them what they are.
4?
There was Joe Montana in San Francisco, Favre, Rodgers, and they counted Dak. I don't think Dak's Hall of Famer.
Mike McCarthy coached Favre. Well, he coached Favre in the beginning.
Yeah, but he didn't
coached
make
Joe Montana.
He was like the quarterback coach. I think
Are you sure it wasn't Steve Young?
No, it was Montana, and there was the last year he was there. So I don't think he made them Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Certainly didn't make Favre was a Hall of Fame quarterback long before McCarthy got there.
Yeah, he made Rodgers a Hall of Fame quarterback. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, he worked with him. Give him credit for that. But it was just a weird take. And the question was, is McCarthy a Hall of Fame coach?
Not yet.
Not yet. I don't think so either.
No, if he wins with Dallas, he is for sure. But I think he's going to win another Super Bowl.
We'll see.
I really do.
Well,
you want another fun, outrageous
is Sean McVay a Hall of Fame coach?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. Not yet.
I've had other people tell me yes, and I'm like, well,
other people do because people are obsessed with Sean McVay. I don't think he is. People think coaching tree equals Hall of Fame for a coach, and it doesn't.
Kyle Shanahan is. Pete Carroll, I think, is.
Not yet. Pete Carroll is.
Kyle Shanahan's done more with
Sean
less.
Payton is.
Yes.
That's it.
Well, Bill
Belichick, yeah.
Matt LaFleur. He cheated his way into the Hall of Fame.
And Matt LaFleur. One last outrageous take before we go on to the last word. This is Kyler Murray's last year in the NFL.
Yes.
He will go back and play baseball after this year.
He's too old to go and play baseball.
No, he's not. He is 100% not. This is his last year as an NFL starting quarterback.
Tim Tebow couldn't go and play baseball. Kyler Murray won't be
Tim Tebow was very close to getting in the majors. He actually played really well.
Yeah, he did.
Did he get a cup of coffee in the majors? I don't think he ever made it.
I don't know if
he was in AAA, though, playing really, really well. And that's a guy who hadn't played baseball even in college.
In a decade.
So, I mean, talk about Tim Tebow being an athlete. He really was. You can't deny that. He was an athlete.
He was the best college quarterback probably of all time.
Yeah, I think there's been some guys after him that may take that at this point. There's been a lot of good quarterbacks.
Peyton Manning was good, but I mean, Tim Tebow.
I'm talking after Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow has been unbelievable. He was just unbelievable.
Honest question, better than Johnny Manziel when he was playing college?
Absolutely.
You think?
Yes. Absolutely.
Better leader, for sure.
Better leader, better quarterback. I mean, they played within his strengths in Florida.
They did.
Anyway,
we have had a lot of fun, but as always, you cannot have a conversation with your father without your dad getting the last word, so it is all you.
So, I've been nice the last few weeks.
Is that what we're calling it?
Yeah, we're going to go with that. That's all I got. But I'm not going to be so nice today. I am so sick of the Leah Thomases of the world, or the William Thomas, whichever he is. You are a guy that was swimming against women, and you stole an NCAA title you had no right to have. You swam against the men in the spring, and you decided, oh, I wasn't good enough, so I'm going to swim against the women. And the women fought for years to have an equal footing in sports. They deserved it. And they're great athletes. The United States has the best soccer team in the world. Should some guy who's on the men's USA soccer team just declare he's now identifies as a woman and be allowed to play in the World Cup? I don't think so. We've got to start drawing lines and being willing to stand up and say, look, there's right and there's wrong in this world. And if you're a biological male, you don't compete against women. And by the way, you don't get to go in their locker rooms. Not fair to the women. Who knows what could happen? It's been happening around the country before, but this has got to stop. I mean, women have fought too hard. I watched the College World Series this afternoon for softball. They're great athletes. No guy should be on that field. If he says he's a woman or not, you don't belong on that field. Go and play against the men where you belong. I'm done.
Before we end the show.
Gonna have light up Jobo one more time.
Light up Jobo one more time. Thank you as always for watching. This has been Sports Talk with Dad. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.